with our key insights for today's webinars, as well as our evaluation poll. So first off, I want to introduce to you our first speaker. She is Dr. Marielza Olivera, and she is the director of the UNESCO Communications and Information Sector Division for Digital Inclusion, Policies and Transformation. Her bio is in the information booklet that would have already been disseminated to you. And so you can read that up to learn more about her expansive work and experience. And so at this time, I want to just invite her to take the floor. Marielza, over to you.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you so much for the good, warm welcome. And I appreciate the invitation to join this important webinar series made to UNESCO and to myself. So hope you can all hear me well. And let me share my screen so that I can, give you a view of our digital transformation competencies in the public sector. So hold on. Sharing the screen, and now looking for this slide for the presentation slideshow, and go from the beginning. Can you? Oh, weird. I think that they're showing me the actual. Showing you the screen that I should be seeing, not the other way around. So hold on for a second, if I can reverse that. Swap. Okay, good. Does that? I hope everybody's is seeing that well.
That is fine.
Great, fantastic. So thank you very much. All right. So I don't know what happened. I guess that's well. I mean, I hope you don't mind seeing these slides as it is this way then. Somehow my display is not doing what it should be doing. But anyways, UNESCO works on the protection of human rights online and on communication and information advancement. And a key topic for us, of course, is the issue of digital transformation, because it has such enormous potential for accelerating sustainable development. But there are plenty of challenges that exist, around successful digital transformation, and particularly for the public sector. First one is this issue of digital divides and inequalities between and within countries that goes all the way from infrastructure, what we usually call the digital connectivity, all the way to capacities, and it's within countries as well, between public and private sectors, between men and women, rural and urban areas, as well as between countries, between developed and developing economy. The issue is that also digital transformation sometimes contributes to violations of human rights online. Particularly, we're talking about, like the right to privacy, freedom of expression, access to information, and so on. A lack of transparency, accountability, and openness in digital platforms in particular. And the fact that technology changes a lot faster than regulation and norms can follow. So there's always some gap, to be closed. And the fact that there are weak or uneven capacities in many areas and in many groups in this particular element. UNESCO approaches the issue of digital transformation from a principled way, and for us is this issue of having what we call the Rome Act approach, voluntary principles, adopted principles that member states have endorsed on how digital ecosystems should evolve. And we call them the internet universality approach, because we think about, not universality, not only in terms of connecting everyone, universal access, but also in terms of universal values that should be upheld. And so the Rome Act acronym is the human rights, the R, the rights, digital ecosystems should be human rights based. They should be open to all, and the openness is not only in access, but in data, in knowledge, in markets, in opportunities for everyone to transform their access into socioeconomic development, um, accessible by all, and inclusively, so that platform features, for example, should welcome persons with disabilities. They should enable participation of those who speak languages that are not the majority languages of the internet. There are 7,061 languages in the world, but only about 300 are online. And in particularly, this issue of inclusive access in terms of artificial intelligence, particularly for countries from the global south. And of course, we talk about adopting a multi-stakeholder approach to governance, including internet governance, AI governance, that empowers everyone to participate effectively in digital ecosystems. And we also consider issues of cross-cutting issues such as the gender equality principles, the fact that Africa and small island developing states should be prioritized in development and safety online and so on. This Rome principles, I mean, just to complete, they serve as a kind of a compass to ensure that human rights centered approach to technology development and adoption, and that should also be part of what we do in the public sector. And when we apply the Rome principles and use the indicators to assess at national or sub-regional levels, we can research, map, and improve the ecosystem by identifying gaps that exist and making recommendations for closing this gap. And just as an aside, from the Caribbean, Dominican Republic is actually conducting a Rome assessment, and there are some conversations also for the Caribbean nations altogether to undertake a sub-regional assessment for themselves, so that they can pinpoint gaps that exist in the digital ecosystems developed. In the area of UNESCO where I work, what's called the communications and information sector, it's the area that leads on digital transformation processes, including the development, deployment, and use of artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies such as quantum and Internet of Things and so on. And our vision in here is that we need to empower everyone to make decisions, to contribute to and effectively participate in technology development, in regulation, in policy and capacity, and all the processes that are necessary and related to artificial intelligence from a human-centered perspective. And we tend to emphasize the use of an inclusive and accessible approach to digital transformation initiatives and strategies. And that's why we have a capacity building intervention cycle that is focused on the needs of users. And our focus is particularly looking at civil servants, because in all branches of government, they are the ones who tend to be lagging behind in terms of capacity development, but also the ones that are the most important in terms of guiding a country's digital transformation itself. And we work with all the branches. For example, we have a massive open online course and tools for the judiciary to help judicial actors, such as judges, public prosecutors, attorneys from ministries and others, to understand how artificial intelligence can actually help accelerate access to justice, but also to understand what the potential harms that they can create. And it's all free and open access on the internet. So I'll put the links on the chat later on. We also start to work with legislatures to help them to understand, what are the gaps that exist in regulatory framework that they need to close. But we particularly focus on the executive branch, the ministries and the secretaries, and particularly those related to the IT area, to build capacities for the staff that really have the task of guiding, transformation for our country, and who are crucial to have the necessary competencies for that. And we use this cycle in which our team guides civil servants through a digital capacity assessment process at the level of individuals and the level of institutions, and compares that with our competency framework, which I'll be showing you in a moment. And we construct a tailored in-depth training process for government officials, then on base of those needs, and then we mentor them through this process of transformation, all along. It's a very much, a similar approach to what our colleagues, do wonderfully at this. And it's really important that we do, digital transformation right, because, the kinds of opportunities that it opens for countries and for governments are enormous. So first of all, it really increases effectiveness and efficiency of public service delivery. For example, we have the rosy example that I put on the screen. This is a digital transformation effort actually by an NGO that helps, that the State Court of Justice in São Paulo in Brazil, my home country, which deploys a digital solution that enables accelerated processing time for justice, judicial claims for processes that traffic through court. And they accelerated them by 87% by having to pull some of these that are similar and routing them to similar judges, to the same judges, so that similar decisions can be made, and increases consistency also of the judicial process. Another issue is that it helps to address complex governance problems, because we know that global problems are interconnected, and they manifest themselves at national and local levels, and the governments at those levels cannot solve them alone. But they go, for example, from environmental degradation all the way to, and global warming, to the rising inequalities and so on. So these governments that work on those problems, for them to work on those problems, they need not only to be working at these problems at local and national levels, but also to be coordinating with other stakeholders at the higher levels, regional and global levels. So that adds another dimension of complexity that artificial intelligence can help to mitigate. A third one is this issue of enabling public engagement, participation of citizens, as well as transparency and accountability, and strengthening those. For example, and that's what some of this process. There's a system in Brazil that is an anti-corruption system that uses publicly available data to track expenditures of government and identify opportunities for improvement, but also to combating corruption in that sense. And here, there's a slide, just these small letters, but you can have these slides later. It's just a series of examples of what artificial intelligence has been doing, for the public sector, for example, because not only governments can develop their own AIs, applications, but they also can buy some existing ones in the market. And many of those have to do with computer vision, virtual assistants, predictive analytics, robotics and automation, and so on. And use those to optimize, the provision of public services in their respective countries. And just a few examples, in Singapore, there's this virtual assistants that integrate a chatbot, essentially, that integrates responses by a citizen who calls on any area. So they track all the areas, that a person may be asking about construction in their city. Others may be looking at a national justice process, but they still, the same chatbot is able to respond to all these questions by integrating all the data set around that. Or a robot, for example, in Spain, that uses that helps to support quality of life for elderly people, by having these robots reminding them of the appointments they have, our time to take medication, and chatting with them to help them, improve their spirit and so on. But of course, there are challenges also, so there are all these opportunities, but the big challenges for the public sector are the fact that, there are great barriers, three great barriers that need to be overcome. The first, is that, we public sector tends to be a culture and organization that is averse to experimentation and to innovation. They have these hierarchical processes, things are well defined, managers know what to do, and then comes these disruptive processes that sometimes, are not very supported. And therefore, there's lack of leadership support for innovative ideas, fear of failure, and so on and so forth. So that's an issue, that is complicates the process in the public sector. Another big barrier is the fact of data. The data structures for public sector, as incredible as it sounds, are even more complicated. Public sector collect a lot of data, but it's not necessarily well structured and organized for use in training artificial intelligence models, for example, or in being used for predictive analytics and so on. And public sector tends to buy cheaper equipment, and so there is a lack of IT infrastructure investment, a lack of available and accessible data sets that are harmonized across different government entities, and there's a lack of mature data organization, data management, data governance processes, and so on. And that is one of the biggest barriers, is organizing the data approaches in the government. And a primary challenge in implementing digital transformation is the infrastructure gap that affects certain countries. For example, there's no big servers for storing large data sets, the weak broadband, there is a lower percentage of connected citizens, and so on. And then, so that even aggravates the process. And finally, the issues of human resource capacity and reason why we need so much capacity development in the public sector specifically, because more than anything, digital transformation actually requires talent, and public sector underinvests in training its own talent. Public servants tend to be undervalued, a bit neglected. There is a culture of outsourcing to consultants this kind of service, so that competencies are not ever acquired by the public sector itself. And then there's competition with the private sector that pays higher rates, and then steals the good well-trained people away from the public sector. And this is actually an issue that is absolutely well recognized. Some of the biggest blocks that chief information officers identify for implementation of digital solutions, successful digital transformation, are the issues of siloed strategies, the culture that blocks change, insufficient funding or budgets for the necessary investment, the lack of competencies and skills, and so on, the lack of digital leadership, and so on. So these are exactly the barriers that we identify as well. So we developed this competency framework through a global multi-stakeholder approach. We consulted over 100 governments around the world. There were regional consultations in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, and in the Caribbean, specific consultation for the Caribbean, and identifying this sets of competencies that are necessary, that governments themselves feel they lack in order to address, properly digital transformation. So, and what are those? So those are these three big sets of competencies that specifically look at not on the technology side. So we're not looking at how to train people in Python or in certain types of machine language approaches or not. We're looking at how do we transform mindset, how do we change mindset and prepare civil servants to really lead digital transformation processes. And there are three sets of competencies that we're talking about. The ability to do digital planning and design that enables civil servants to really understand the complexity of the problems, to recognize the strategy and opportunities to use digital solutions, and to envision and design inclusive transformation projects that actually are future-proof, that they don't have to be completely abandoned and modified when technology changes, as it will naturally change all the time. A second group of competencies is the data use and governance. We equip civil servants to understand and use data, the fundamental role that data plays, the value that it has, the opportunities that it creates, the risks that exist in handling data, and so on. And it helps to support civil servants in addressing governance challenges and manage data effectively within their own organizations, but also to be, uphold ethics on data management and responsibility on privacy and so on. And the types of competencies we are talking about is like digital literacy, data-driven decision-making, open data and open governments, how to set it up, privacy and security issues, regulation of data and ethical frameworks, and so on. And the third and final set of competencies, we are talking about digital management and execution, with what empowers civil servants to understand the new and innovative project management and collaborative types of practices that help them to lead successful digital transformation approach. So it encourages civil servants to be agile, to be collaborative, to make the most of the kinds of rapid improvements that happens, to be creative and to innovate in different cycles of technology. We're talking about people centricity, iteration, agile execution, digital leadership, and so on. And just a few examples, one on each of these digital transformation competencies. We have this digital planning and design, for example, has 4 areas of digital competencies: problem identification and solutions, system thinking, strategic foresight, agile strategy. Each of those, you have competencies from basic to intermediate to advanced and AI-specific competencies that help specifically with projects that are particularly critical and in the use of artificial intelligence. And so people can progress through these levels, as well as organizations can identify which kinds of staff in their own institutions need to master each of these types of competencies, to identify problems for which digital technology is adequate solution, understand how problems are connected, to anticipate problems and expect unexpected circumstances, and to plan initiatives that are flexible and adaptable and so on. The data use and governance has a series of competencies, subfields area, that data literacy, data-driven decision-making, open data and open government, privacy and security, legal, regulatory, and ethical framework, how to create those for data, and fundamentals of artificial intelligence, also with the same levels from basic to intermediate to advanced to AI specific, and what kinds of knowledge people require at each of those levels. And finally, digital management and execution, again, people centricity, iteration, agile execution, digital leadership, and the same levels and AI specific. So people centricity, for example, for agile execution at the basic level, to understand what is agile management, what are the techniques, to make, at the intermediate level, to use agile management techniques in designing projects, and at the advanced level, to how to organize and management digital transformation processes, and at the AI level to master, a specific agile management technique and create partnerships around, augmenting the powers of government to do that. And so, with our research and our experiences around the world, we've been working with, over 50 governments in these kinds of using this competency framework. We have developed 9 recommendations, some for supporting government in their digital transformation capacity development process. So it's recommendations specifically for capacity development for government. And 5 are general, 1 is for private sector, 2 for governments, and 1 for academia. And the general ones are very simple. First of all, governments need to raise awareness around the need for the competences to be strengthened. Of course, you cannot really successfully lead digital transformation, artificial intelligence processes if your staff, your users, they don't understand that they need to upskill their own skills as well, their own competences for the systems to be effective. Then, the issues of contextualization, localization, and adaptation of digital transformation competencies. They're not necessarily the same everywhere. Certain countries have, more ability in creating chips, for example. So, of course, competencies for the staff, for the citizens are, high in this area, may not be so high in the areas of computer programming and so on. So they need to actually change and do analysis of their capacity needs on the basis of a local, context. And not only that, but in different teams, different departments, and so on. So, sorry. The third is that we need to share resources and knowledge. The more open source you make your training elements, the easier it is, the faster it is for competences to be transferred, so creating learning hubs, multi-pathway curriculum with bringing together different organizations to help expedite, and increasing the available training elements is key. The fact that that there's a need to monitor also the impact of capacity development, digital transformation processes, because quite a lot of this are started, but people don't really look at what the impact is. So are people truly learning? Are they using the skill sets? Are the organizations improving because of the use of skill sets? What needs to be adjusted, and so on? And to really create cooperation and mutual learning, fostering exchange, so that you can create the conditions and platforms for exchanging practices on artificial intelligence and AI on digital transformation capacity building processes. So at the national, regional, local, international level, as well. 4, of the recommendations are actually for other stakeholders. So the government ones is that really take a holistic approach when using the competency framework. Don't think that you can just work on the data and forget the other part. Really need to do this on an integrated way, so that really, the strategies can really be effective. And then, make sure that there are action plans developed to strengthen the specific competencies that are necessary for the government. For academia, they can use the digital competency framework to really think about what should they offer in terms of curricula and interdisciplinary programs to government officials. What should they be making available so that they can, help contribute to this process as well. And for the private sector, of course, make sure that they collaborate with governments to implement capacity building initiatives, as well as contribute their own expertise, their own knowledge, their learnings from other countries if they have it, so that it accelerates the digital transformation everywhere where they deploy their system. So let me stop here, and I'll be happy to answer your questions, any questions you have, or make any comments you have. And in the meantime, I'll be putting in the chat some of the links to some of the elements that I mentioned. So please, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marielza. Just